The Garden War, a story of power, precision, and unbreakable resolve. The gun trembled in Scott Langley's hand, pointed directly at my daughter's face. He thought he was in control, his grip tight, his jaw clenched, his posture stiff like a man who watched too many action movies but never learned a thing about actual danger. "You're making a serious mistake," Lauren said, her voice low, unervingly calm. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Her words weren't meant to provoke, only to inform. "Based on your stance and trigger discipline," she continued, "I'd guess you've never received proper firearms training." That wasn't fear. That wasn't a scream or a tearful plea. That was an assessment, a professional, one from a woman in gardening gloves, a woman with dirt on her knees and a trowel in one hand, talking like she was giving feedback at the firing range. He didn't know her. Not really. Not the way I did. 6 years in Special Forces. 2 deployments. Countless missions that never made the news. Reconnaissance in regions scrubbed off public maps. She knew more about guns than he would in 10 lifetimes. And now, he was pointing one at her. But that's not where our story starts. 6 months ago, Lauren and I moved into Silverwood Pines, a charming suburban development tucked away on the edge of Arlington, Virginia. I just retired after 23 years in the Marines and another decade as a civil engineer. I was looking for peace, a quiet place to grow old, maybe catch up on woodworking or coach Little League. Lauren had just left the military, too. She was coming out of something dark era, rough breakup. The weight of transition from service to civilian life, nights where she woke up sweating and breathless, gripping the side of her bed like she was still back in the desert. She moved in with me temporarily while figuring out her next steps. Meanwhile, she took a job with the local police department as a tactical trainer. Silverwood Pines seemed ideal. Great schools, low crime, clean streets, and friendly neighbors. The houses all looked a bit alike, but I figured that was just suburban charm. Cookie cutter wasn't always a bad thing. Uniformity had its comforts. The real estate agent had mentioned an HOA, but after decades of strict military structure, I wasn't exactly worried about some neighborhood rules. That was before I met Valerie Granger. She ran the HOA like it was her personal monarchy. At the first community meeting, I saw her in action, mid-40s, dressed like a high-end realtor ad, speaking in a tone so smooth it barely masked the poison beneath it. She dismissed concerns with a tight-lipped smile. An older man tried to talk about a drainage problem ruining his backyard. Valerie cut him off mid-sentence, claiming it was his own fault. I knew then this wasn't just about lawns and fences. Valerie ruled through fear. Lauren stayed out of it at first. She was focused on healing. One of her quiet rituals was gardening. It reminded her of her mommy, late wife, who passed from cancer 5 years ago. She'd said once that digging in the dirt helped her feel close to her again. So Lauren planted a garden. It wasn't big, some marigolds, lavender, tomatoes, but it was neat, beautifully arranged, and in my opinion, made our front yard look even better. 3 days later, we found a notice taped to our door. Remove unauthorized landscaping in 48 hours or face a $200 fine. I was confused. I read the HOA covenant again and found nothing that explicitly prohibited front yard gardens. I responded respectfully, citing the rules and asking for clarification. Their reply? A second notice, doubled fine, and a vague threat. The HOA reserves the right to interpret community standards as it sees fit. I was annoyed but not worried. I figured a quick chat at the next meeting would clear things up. Then came Valerie's enforcer. Scott Langley wasn't security. He was a man in a black polo shirt with the HOA logo stitched over the chest, wearing cargo pants and a tactical belt like he was prepping for combat. I noticed him at the next meeting, standing near Valerie like a silent bodyguard. When I brought up the garden during the open forum, presenting pictures of other homes with similar decorative features, Valerie shut me down. "Your yard doesn't meet aesthetic standards," she said coolly. "The others you photographed were designed by professionals. Yours is amateur." I cited the rules. I even offered to record the discussion for transparency. That's when things shifted. She called an emergency vote right there to amend the guidelines to ban flower or vegetable gardens in front yards. No notice, no discussion, no fairness. It passed 17-11. Her people. Her power. As I packed my things to leave the meeting, Scott cornered me. "People like you don't belong here," he said. I didn't tell Lauren about that part. She'd been through enough. I planned to fight this legally, quietly. But Lauren wasn't the type to stay uninvolved for long. The next day, I got a text while at work. Valerie and her goon showed up. "Try to get into the house. All good now. Come home when you can." When I got back, Lauren was calm. Too calm. She told me Valerie and Scott had tried to conduct a compliance inspection, claiming the HOA had access rights to private homes. Lauren had blocked them, not physically, just by standing firm. She quoted the actual covenant and offered to record the exchange. Valerie backed off, but not before saying, "We don't get many military families here." There's a reason for that. Lauren didn't mention the part about the gun. Not then. Not until it was pointed at her face. A week later, I got a call at work from Samuel Green, a professor who lived across the street. "You need to come home. Now. That HOA GA pulled a gun on your daughter." I don't remember the drive. I just remember the police lights. Samuel had witnessed it all. Valerie and Scott had shown up again, this time demanding that Lauren stop gardening. She had calmly handed Valerie a formal appeal letter. That's when Scott pulled the gun. Lauren didn't flinch. She didn't plead. She analyzed. "You're brandishing a firearm without cause," she said, eyes locked on his. "Trigger discipline is non-existent. Based on your stance, you're not only untrained, you're dangerous." Before it escalated further, Officer Daniela Ruiz arrived, Lauren's friend and trainee. She defused the situation, disarmed Scott, and arrested him. And then Lauren revealed the footage. She'd installed motion trigger cameras after the last visit. They'd caught everything: Scott pulling a gun on an unarmed woman who held nothing more threatening than a folded piece of paper. The legal advice was clear: we had a case. But Lauren wasn't interested in lawsuits. She wanted change. In the weeks that followed, we built our case like a mission. HOA bylaws, financial records, testimonies from other residents, all compiled meticulously. Samuel became our ally, revealing how Valerie had blocked audits, increased dues, and used HOA funds at her own spa business. At the emergency HOA meeting, Valerie attempted to paint us as the problem. We showed them the truth. The footage of Scott, the financial records, the testimonies. The community rose up. They voted Valerie out, appointed Samuel interim president, rescinded the new rules, issued a formal apology. We thought it was over, until Valerie came back one final time. That night, she and Scott snuck into our yard, armed with a tank of herbicide and a handgun. They tried to destroy the garden and break into our home. Lauren stopped them. In a confrontation straight out of a tactical textbook, she disarmed Scott, subdued him, and held him until the police arrived. Valerie was arrested for breaking and entering, attempted evidence destruction, and conspiracy. The aftermath? Scott is now serving a 5-year sentence. Valerie lost everything: her position, her business, her reputation. Lauren's garden thrives. And so do we. We stayed. Because this neighborhood, it's ours now. Not just our Severi ones. The community that rose from the ashes of Valerie's control is something worth protecting. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's simple. Never point a gun at someone unless you're prepared to face the consequence. Especially when that someone has spent her life preparing for moments exactly like that.